Hi, how are you?
Gentlemen, as we progress with lunch, we've had a change in venue, so let me explain a little bit. The Connecticut Legislature called a special session today, and that prevented our original speakers, John Hampton and Kevin Whitcomb, from joining us. They're off to better things, at least we hope for us and perhaps for them. In the interim, we've been particularly fortunate, and perhaps I should say, after a little bit of arm twisting, we have Elaine Lang to speak with us today. Now, Elaine basically was sworn in last night as one of Simsbury's selectmen. I don't think we're going to ask her to talk about her experience so far. It's only been about 17 hours. What she's going to do is she'll speak to us whilst we're eating, because she has a senior in high school and who is scheduled for an interview at the university this afternoon. So Elaine is going to speak to us whilst we're enjoying our meal. So let me proceed directly to introduce our guest speaker. Elaine grew up in Simsbury. She's a graduate of Simsbury High School in 1987. She has a BA in Government and Economics from Colby College and an MA in Politics from the Catholic University of America. She has worked as a senior account executive and freelance writer, and has received awards in excellence in journalism from the Connecticut Society of Professional Journalists in 2008-2010. Currently, Elaine is president of the Simsbury Historical Society. So, with that introduction, I'm delighted to call upon Elaine Lang.
Hello, I'm sorry. I apologize in advance for my mucking up your usual schedule and my hasty departure. I apologize on behalf of Representative Hampton and Senator Whitcomb, both of whom would have loved to be here, but duty called, and I'm glad I was able to step into their rather large shoes. So thank you very much, Paul, for that very kind introduction. I am just going to talk for a little bit, and then I'd be happy to answer any questions. I am delighted to speak to your group. I have had the pleasure of working with many active retired people, especially through the Historical Society, which in particular, as soon as I heard that this was the retired men's group, I couldn't wait to come talk to you all, because over the last few years we've had an incredible swell of efforts and new programs and renovations, all spearheaded by men who have recently left the workforce and are contributing incredibly. We are working on getting a woodworking shop up and going and a lot of other projects. Hello, Bob Lyle. And so, I'd encourage all of you to, if that interests you in any way, please come on down. And we have a lot of volunteer opportunities beyond the kind of docents and tour guides that I remember the Historical Society having when I was a kid during the golden age of the bicentennial celebration and things like that. But we have a lot of really exciting things going on, and you are all invited to come down and participate. Simsbury is a great place to grow up and to live, and I'm sure many of you raised your kids here and have obviously chosen to stay here as throughout your lives, and it's a wonderful place to be. There's so much history and culture and natural beauty that it's really a wonderful place to be, which is part of why I'm back. I know Paul mentioned in my introduction that I had grown up here and graduated from Simsbury High School in the 80s. And then I actually left, and I lived, after graduating from college in Maine, I lived in Alaska for a few years, and then I lived in the Washington, D.C. suburbs for about 10 years. And at one point, my husband and I had the opportunity to move anywhere we wanted to. He was running his own business, and we could choose wherever we wanted to live to raise our 3 daughters, and we chose to come back to Simsbury. So I am really happy to be here and speak with you gentlemen and enjoy yet another great community group in town. I am also now on the Board of Selectmen, but I do not have a lot of really exciting news to share on that front since it's been 17 hours or so since I was sworn in. I've had one meeting at which we basically set our schedule for the next year, so we haven't really gotten that ball rolling, but it's been a lovely introduction to the rest of the board, and everyone is really excited to work together. So I'm feeling very positive about how we're going to be able to continue to serve the town. So that's another bit of excitement. I'm going to pause for a moment just to see if anyone has any questions or anything they'd like to cover. I know I'm interrupting your meal, and I'm sorry for that. But if anybody does have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them as best I can. No? Okay. So in addition to, I mentioned our woodworking shop at the Historical Society, we have a number of other exciting opportunities for volunteers and for members to come down and enjoy programming. And we're also always looking for, if any of you have been here for most of your lives, oral histories or pictures, or just to hear your stories of what Simsbury has been like over decades. We are, a lot of our recent history is still around us, and by recent I mean it isn't that recent, but looking at things, we've been looking at our World War II era information about living in Simsbury, either for those of you who served, or for people on the home front who remember rations and shortages and other civic efforts that are really important. So we'd love to talk to you and hear about your experiences and find ways that you could join us and participate. Yes.
I've got to do it. Everybody's eating.
I think the food is too good.
That's probably, no. It's because they just are afraid to ask questions.
Oh, well, I'm not that scary.
Are you taking older citizens actually and putting their messages on tape for posterity, things like that?
We do not have a formal program. The question was, are we recording from our older residents' oral histories? We do not have a set program on that. We do have someone transcribing some that we had in the past. That is something that I think we should do, and I think that we are recommending, especially for students that come looking for a project, high school or college students. I think that would be an excellent thing, and it's much easier to record people now to get these histories with their digital things. Most, I know my kids walk around and on their cell phones record whole classes of lectures and things like that. So certainly if anyone knows of someone who would like to work on a project like that, we would welcome that, because that is something we'd really like to do. And we also have a few more localized small group projects. Mary Mitchell is working on a project about Weetog over the years, and taking some
people just primarily from Simsbury or from the Farmington Valley?
We're doing primarily from Simsbury because our resources are limited, and so we focus on things from the town of Simsbury. Although if people go way back, Simsbury originally encompassed a large part of this area from Granby, East Granby, Bloomfield were all originally parts of Simsbury. Thank you.
All right, who's next?
Here's the question over here.
Yes.
So what do you see the needs of the town to be, from your perspective, that was a strong motivation for you to seek public office?
Okay. The question, in case anybody didn't hear it, was how do I see the needs of the town and things in particular that I'm seeking to work on in office. I got to learn a lot, actually, over the summer, walking around and knocking on people's doors. I don't know if I knocked on any of your doors. If I did, hello again. But it was really interesting to hear what people had to say about their largest concerns. And I think among seniors, affordable housing so people can stay in town is very important. A lot of, there's a need for spaces that people can downsize from their larger homes and still maintain their presence in town. People don't want to leave where they've been for their whole lives. A lot of concerns about zoning issues have been coming up recently, both in terms of residential development, which I think a lot of people want to be sure that we're not competing with the property values of our existing homes, and yet we do want to keep the town as a vibrant, growing community. So choosing carefully what projects we look for in a way that are sized appropriately to the town is something that a lot of people are concerned with. And finally, there's the balance of economic development. With the Hartford leaving, there's a great deal of concern about our tax base and having some commercial tax revenue come in. The Silverman Group, which has entered into an agreement to purchase that property, is still in their due diligence phase of analyzing the property and deciding before they finalize that. But given their interest in it has been fairly in line with a lot of things that are already here in Simsbury with our feel and our culture. So that's very heartening. I think the scale and appropriateness of economic development it's a balancing act, because while we do want more development, I think that there are some concerns coming either on the design side or the traffic impact side, or just how the businesses that we bring in will impact the town, and do they fit with what we have already. I personally would like to see us attract the kind of businesses that, I have 3 kids in public schools right now, and I would like to see businesses come in town that offer the kind of jobs that our schools are training our kids to have, so that my kids can have the choice that I had to move back. So I think there's a real promise. We have a great education system, especially in technology and computers, and the kinds of businesses that work on especially software development and that kind of thing. They don't need trucking routes, which is something that we don't have in Simsbury. But what these high-tech companies tend to look for in a town is access to natural resources and outdoor recreation, a existing well-educated workforce, and excellent public schools. And people are now wanting to live where they work. So I think if we address that wisely and responsibly, that we really have a lot of opportunities for bringing in businesses that will help the town to grow and maintain a healthy balance for us. Thanks. Yes?
Do you have any information on the status of the Martin Luther King project that was being...
On the memorial project, the question about the Martin Luther King Memorial, I do not know when they are planning on breaking ground. They are going over the financial aspect of that. The committee of young people and their adult contributors are still working through the free libraries. So at the Historical Society, we have not taken over fully the execution of the project. We've got some structural engineering and grading things, I think, that they're looking at right now. So the short answer is no, I don't have any new information, but
I know that some of the funds have already been raised. I just don't know, are they deficient in that, or?
I'm not exactly sure what their total is. I think they're trying to make sure they did, most of the funds are raised. I think they're trying to determine exactly what the financials of the of the actual construction are going to be. As with any construction estimate, the estimate and the reality sometimes don't line up. So I think at this point they're looking at what funds they have and looking at more specifically at the realities of the costs. But it is still moving forward, and we have seen sketches of the location on our property. So we're hoping that we are working on adding some programming exhibits to surround that to support the memorial. So the memorial won't stand alone. We'll also have some exhibits and programming also to support that.
Elaine, a question about, I'm not certain, 3, maybe 4 years ago, there was a charrette conducted in town, which basically addressed prospective future structures in town and traffic flow and so on. And it seems to me that sort of just disappeared for a while. Can you at least give us an idea where that might be?
The charrette is actually still a very helpful thing. In fact, the Silverman Group, who is in the process of looking at the Hartford property, actually cited the charrette as something that they found attractive about buying property and locating a new business in Simsbury, that we addressed our kind of master plan, and also there was a site-specific charrette done with a smaller group on the Hartford property specifically. So the charrette is still in use. I mean, a lot of the plans are hinging upon when things move forward, so that if someone wants to build in that zone, then those things come in. Obviously, we can't just walk down Hot Meadow Street and tell private landowners to quick make the charrette real. But it's still very much there, and that is actually a very interesting thing about the charrette process, is that developers and investors that we've talked to have cited it as an attractive thing that we've done. It shows the civic engagement and that we've been thoughtful about kind of maintaining the consumer base here in town. So it has been a useful thing. It was a really interesting process, and actually we kind of did a little mini copy of it at the Historical Society. Our planning committee did a very small version to kind of help us focus our efforts. So I definitely am a believer in the charrette process. I think it really comes up with good ideas that otherwise we'd miss. Yes?
Would you mind commenting on the status of the Big Y?
Okay, question about the Big Y up in the North Village.
Any more butter? Any more butter? Oh,
Right there. The Big Y still owns the land that was the Wagner Ford property.
I've been to the eye doctor.
And
See it.
and they are still evaluating their plans. It's a business decision on their part at this point when they will break ground. They have all their papers from the town and stuff, so that is not something that's being held up on the town side of things. That's the Big Y's decision. And groceries in general are a very tight profit margin business, so I think they have to be very strategic about when they build on their new properties, and they're not sharing any specific information. It is a common question, and I'm sorry, that's all I've got. Yes?
I've got just your opinion. Do you think this town is ready or wishes to have a council manager type of form of government?
The question was about the council manager form of government as opposed to the Board of Selectmen. And I don't have a set opinion one way or the other on it. I do think it's worth looking at, but there are pluses and minuses to both. It's not a money saver. It will cost us more money to have a city manager than it currently does with elected officials doing the work. Most of our boards are unpaid. The first selectman is the only office that is paid. Everybody else is a volunteer. Moving to a city manager, a competent city manager would command a much higher salary than than even we were paying before the salary was reduced. So it's not a money saver, but it may be a conflict saver, and that's something that the Charter Revision Commission will be considering.
Question.
Yes, sir.
If anybody's gone up through the Powder Forest, they've leveled the place, they've started something, and there's a sign that says something about apartments. Can you enlighten me on what's going on?
I'm not sure if, what the exact plans. I know they are building a new development in there of single-family homes that is non-age restricted, but I'm not familiar with an apartment thing that's going in there. That isn't to say it isn't happening, but I'm not personally familiar. I haven't been up through that way.
It's interesting that something as big as what it appears to be, nobody knows what's going on, but it's being built.
I'll tell you later.
Which one is it?
I know all about it.
We see, you get the inside track. Yes, sir.
As the state debt continues to increase periodically, as recent as, what, 335 million more, how will that impact our taxes in Simsbury? And how do they determine the amount of money that comes to the towns from the state back to the town?
Well, I don't know exactly what the formula is, but I do know there already was an impact. The budget cuts from the municipal payments, we missed out on just over $100,000, I believe, that we were scheduled to receive as kind of our portion. I believe it's supposed to reflect sales tax that the state collects, that a portion of what is collected in Simsbury. Fortunately, in the budget process, our finance committee and the Board of Selectmen took into account that was probably going to happen. So there were spots built into the budget, so it would not have an immediate impact on taxes. The property taxes actually went down for the last 2 years, believe it or not. I don't know, not by a lot, but by a little, which looking back in the historic records is the first time that's ever happened since the 1600s that we can find. So I'm not sure what, in terms of what's happening at the state level, how that is going to continue to impact us. The way it would be in that municipal payment program, and we did receive a reduced payment this last year, so it does affect us. Yes, sir.
And what would be your thought on seniors who want to age in their existing house instead of looking for the downsides? Is there any thought in terms of giving tax relief to those who've been here for so long and paid their dues for their kids that went through the schools and all that, and continue to pay that, and want to stay in the same house that they're now in?
I don't, the question was about tax relief for homeowners who are seniors. And I'm not aware of any proposal about that. I know that some areas have done that in other states. We still need to consider the existing properties in town. Doing something like that would require a very substantial increase for everyone else. So
We already have a program in effect, and it's means tested.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much for reminding me of that. There is a program for some relief that is means tested. So people who are on a limited income, through pensions and Social Security, hardly cover much. There is some relief through a means tested program, and that can help out with that. Does anybody else have any questions? All set? Okay, thank you so much for having me. I'm sorry I was not very prepared, but I'm really grateful for the opportunity to speak with you all. Thank you.
Elaine, thank you very much. I wish you a very safe trip. No speeding tickets on the way. So take care, and thanks very much again.
Thank you.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.